Oh, how beautiful. So that music was gifted to us by our beloved Gary Malkin. The name of that piece is The Science of Love, and we thought it fitting for this ECOSOC Youth Forum, the bridge between science and the culture of peace. This is hosted by Pathways to Peace and in partnership with the UN Unitive Cluster. So welcome. We are so very honored and delighted that you are here with us today. We expect this to be an incredible, intergenerational, and interactive event. So we especially want to thank Tara Luther, one of our PTP youth representatives to the UN, as she is the one that put together the event for you today. And Tara is a superstar today in our time together. She's also going to be a presenter and is our MC, our mistress of ceremonies. So I will soon turn the floor over to Tara. But first, let me share just a little bit about Pathways to Peace and begin our time together in the right way. So Pathways to Peace is a UN-designated peace messenger organization in consultation with ECOSOC and the Department of Global Communications. But our work reaches far beyond the UN and touches the lives of thousands every year through peace education, empowering youth activists, and local global programs that bring peace and eliminate barriers to peace. We're so proud of our work in Guinea, our Exceptional Women of Peace Awards program, our work on nuclear disarmament, to name just a few. So we recognize the need to expand unitive consciousness as it is really the undergirding for peace on our planet. And we recognize that peace is an inside job. It begins within. And we know that each of you here today is a pathway to peace. At Pathways to Peace, we begin each of our events with a minute of silence, a moment of peace, what we call our peace wave. And we recognize the importance of this practice to ground us, to center us, and to open our hearts and minds to what is to come. So let's take that moment of peace now, as we let go of whatever busyness we left behind us to come into this sacred circle. Let's just breathe a little more deeply and a little more slowly as we enter in that minute of silence and that moment of peace. Let us come into our hearts now. Thank you. Thank you so much. And so it is. So now it is my honor and delight to introduce Tara Luther. Tara is an extraordinary woman, a Renaissance woman with a diversity of talents and skill sets and interests. She is our Pathways to Peace Youth Rep. She's a pilot and an aspiring doctor, and she has been instrumental as an intern for two of our most important collaborative initiatives, the UN Unitive Cluster with Joni Carley, who is here as well today to present and is a partner for this event, and the Deep and Rapid Transformation Convergence, or DRTC. So I will put her bio in the chat because it's far more expansive than what I can speak in this moment. Tara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tess. Welcome all. We will start by welcoming Fivor Beatrice, Program Manager at the Initiative for Peace and Women's Rights in Africa. Fivor is based in Nigeria and is a passionate advocate for girl-child education and women's empowerment. Her work designing community-based programs helps ensure women and girls have the tools and opportunities they need to thrive. So Fivor, please feel free to unmute yourself now.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sending you greetings from Zamfara State. Zamfara State is one of the states in the northern part of Nigeria, and I'm representing all the girls in the northern part of Nigeria, and also our mentees at the Girls' Rights and Peace Club. So I would like to introduce our organization. I work for an organization called Initiative for Peace and Women's Rights in Africa, IPWRA. IPWRA is a non-governmental organization established in 2012, and we work in 3 thematic areas, which include education, peace building, and governance. We work to bridge gender gaps in governance, foster peace in conflict-prone area, and provide access to quality education for girls across Nigeria, particularly in rural and underserved regions. And that's the reason why most of our activities takes place in Zamfara State. Zamfara State is one of the states in the northern part of Nigeria that faces conflicts such as communal clashes, inter-religion conflicts, early child marriage, child labor, banditry, and so on. This is a region where our services is much needed. And some of our activities include, first, sensitization program in secondary schools. This is where we visit schools, invite expertise in certain topics to educate the girls on those topics such as peace building, career talk, goal setting, personal hygiene, etc. Then secondly, IPWRA leadership and peace ambassadors, where we invite young women from the age 18 to 35. This involves a fire round table where women discuss the challenges and opportunities of being a leader. These young women make commitments to speak up and get involved in leadership. Thirdly, we have the Girls' Rights and Peace Club. This is our current ongoing activity. We launched the Girls' Rights and Peace Club in Nigeria, beginning with Graceland International School in Zamfara. I'll be explaining this further in the next slide. Then fourthly, Girls Community Challenge Program is a challenge we are running this year. We are giving a space or a platform for girls to showcase their talents, either poetry, writings, drawing, and so on. Fifthly, build her a future project. Our major women project is the Build Her a Future project, implemented in Nigeria, Congo DRC, Togo, and Gambia. It is targeted at women's economic and social development, especially women entrepreneurs in agri-tech, renewable energy, and waste management. And last but not the least, we have the quarterly newsletter. It's a girl-focused educational content providing information on career, mentorship, love and life, teen talk for young women. It's very interesting to mention that our newsletter is for every girl. We even transcribe to Braille for persons with disability because we also reach out to School of the Blind. We had to make it Braille for them to also partake, and they were very excited about it. And then our next slide, we have the Girls' Rights and Peace Club. As you can see, these are pictures we took from our program at the first school we inaugurated. These are the girls. You can see the smiles on their faces. And what's our objective? Our objective of this Girls' Rights Club is to create a platform for young girls to express themselves, share their experience, and hone their skills toward community development. And so far, 59 girls have signed up to this club. They'll be meeting every month. When we had our first meeting, the girls were so excited and we captured some of their feedback. I'm going to read maybe like feedback from 2 students. From Khadija Abdul Nasser, she stated, I am so grateful to be part of the Girls' Rights and Peace Club. It's amazing to have a community that understands me and give me a voice. Then feedback from Victoria. Today's inauguration ceremony was inspiring. I'm excited to be part of the club that empowers girls to speak up and create positive change. From Victoria Ezwabe. So these are some of the feedback from these young girls. The club is designed to always meet ending of every month, where they share ideas, their worries, and they talk about it. They meet monthly and speak to the following issues such as career, peace talk, health living talk, girls' rights talk, and occasionally we invite people, expertise to speak on some of these topics to the girls. We are very happy to collaborate or partner with any organization to make our work better. Thank you for this opportunity. These are some of the pictures from the girls. This is me by the right and my colleague by the left. And then the 3 student leaders. And then a teacher from the school. We have one of the student leaders. She also joined the meeting too. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's such an honor to have you join us today. Can everyone see my screen? Wonderful. My name is Tara Lawther. I'll be representing Pathways to Peace today, and I'll be drawing a connection between science and the culture of peace. Before we connect science to a culture of peace, what is a culture of peace? As defined by the United Nations, the culture of peace is a set of values, attitudes, modes of behavior, and ways of life that reject violence and prevent conflict by tackling the root causes of these problems. A culture of peace is defined in the Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace as adopted in 1999 by the United Nations. Today, we'll be referring to that document and drawing connections between different scientific concepts. As UNESCO's motto goes, since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. I want us to keep this in mind as we go through today's session, because this is something that is affirmed again and again in the Declaration. The Declaration on a Culture of Peace highlights the importance of civil society. I commend the Initiative for Peace and Women's Rights in Africa on their Girls' Rights and Peace Club. When we include youth in peace education, we contribute to a more peaceful future. Their science programs create young thinkers and scientists. The scientific method is used across all fields of science as a model for experimentation. It begins with observing a problem, and depending on the investigation, scientists reorder or skip steps. So now that we've observed the context for a culture of peace, we are going to develop a hypothesis. I hypothesize that the culture of peace, as defined in the Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace, is supported by scientific principle and reasoning. Scientific principle and reasoning provide a foundation for a culture of peace and support its viability. While a culture of war pervades society with propaganda, secrets, and lies, a culture of peace is grounded in logic. And I think when we all think science, we think logic and truth. Scientific evidence is respected as a source of logic and as a resolution for mistrust. To go back to the Declaration, the scientific method relates to the education, dialogue, and cooperation that is so greatly promoted. The Declaration says that a culture of peace is grounded in the practice of nonviolence through education, dialogue, and cooperation. It might be hard to say, let's just trust the science, but it might ease you to think that science does not even trust itself. The scientific process is grounded in the idea that science evolves and truth evolves. And the very basis of the scientific method and research is to disprove your claim. We go through the scientific process to either prove or disapprove of our hypothesis, and that puts us through the method again. So this is a great tool to use to support the culture of peace. Article 1 of the Declaration also goes on to highlight a respect for life, and science supports a respect for life. In medicine, the Hippocratic Oath is an oath of ethics taken by physicians. It calls for doctors to do no harm. The respect for life extends across all areas of science, whether it be an IRB review board that's required before initiating research, or the other ethical standards that research scientists follow. It also extends to environmental science, and we'll be demonstrating this with the principle of overfishing. If anyone here eats fish, we know that it has to come from somewhere, and whether it's wild caught or from a fishery, all fishing relates to the concept of overfishing. And overfishing happens when fish are caught at a much faster rate than they can reproduce. This disrupts fish populations, disrupts ecosystems, and threatens food security for millions of people. So it's clear that the implications of this scientific concept affect the environment and affect people. This graphic from NOAA shows that we've improved with overfishing over time and we've decreased its frequency in the United States, but there are still implications for overfishing that's already occurred. Okay, but how does overfishing relate to a culture of peace? It relates to the respect for life. A culture of peace acknowledges our interdependence with nature and the need to safeguard all forms of life, and that includes marine life. Overfishing disrupts the balance of marine ecosystems, threatening the survival of countless aquatic species. This directly challenges the principle of respect for life in the first article of the Declaration, and this extends beyond human life to include the natural world that sustains us. Communities affected by overfishing, particularly in the global south, may face food insecurity and economic hardship. These factors can lead to violence. Promoting environmental justice through sustainable practices aligns with nonviolence and respect for the dignity and survival of all communities. Let's go back to medical science. Medical science directly parallels peace. Preventative care in medical science can include going to get your vaccine, taking the proper medication, but more so it relates to vaccination campaigns, sanitation improvements, and health education. Preventative medicine focuses on addressing the root causes of problems in the same way that a culture of peace encourages us to look at the root problems of violence. And this calls for systemic transformation. When we look at medical science, we see that primary prevention stops the disease before it happens. But it doesn't just stop there. There's secondary and tertiary prevention. When you already have a disease like diabetes or coronary artery disease, there's secondary prevention, which includes early detection of that disease and preventing its progression. But even after you have a disease, science aims to prevent its progression in tertiary prevention. We can see that this parallels the prevention for violence. Primary prevention of violence occurs before the violence happens. Secondary prevention occurs during the violent event or deals with short-term consequences. And tertiary prevention addresses the long-term responses after violence. In this way, scientific models directly support the model for a culture of peace and a culture of nonviolence. I worked 2 years ago with Huntington Breast Cancer Action Coalition as the former project coordinator in New York, and we conducted research on prevention in the environment. HBCAC conducts research tying environmental health directly to human health. And we found that endocrine disrupting chemicals in the environment impact people's risk for cancer. In short, it shows that we are tied to our environment and our environment is tied to us. Human activity affects how healthy the environment is, and in the same way, how healthy our environment is affects how we live and breathe. The Declaration on a Culture of Peace recognizes the need to eliminate all forms of discrimination and intolerance. This includes race, color, sex, language, religion, among other forms of identity in the human population. And let's tie that together with preventing disease in the population with the social determinants of health. This next scientific principle demonstrates that health outcomes are shaped by cultural, economic, and environmental factors in the same way that peace is also shaped by these factors. This model shows that peace is influenced by systemic conditions rather than individual choices alone. Scientific data can be used to address these disparities, which promotes social peace. My experience with the social determinants of health started with my research on cardiovascular health in transgender individuals. I was published on this research 4 years ago, and it opened my eyes to how intersectional our identities are and how different parts of our identity can affect our health. In the same way, different parts of our identity affect our peace and our environments for nonviolence. So this scientific model should be used to address peace in different communities. And how do the social determinants of health relate to building the culture of peace? It reframes the us versus them thinking. So it's very easy to say that we worry about us and you worry about you. But at the end of the day, that's not productive for anyone. People affect people, people affect the environment affects people. This is shown across all fields of medicine, of science, and environmental science. Science reframes the us versus them thinking. Science demonstrates our interconnectedness and supports the program of action called for in 1999. It is not enough to work through siloed project-based solutions, and scientific reasoning supports the call for systemic transformation. And let's get back to the tail end of those slides. These are the scientific concepts that we discussed today: the scientific method, overfishing, preventative medical care, social determinants of health, and our interconnectedness. And I encourage you all to reflect on which scientific principles apply to your own life and your own work at the United Nations. These are our references. Of course, the basis of science is on research, and if you have any questions about references, please feel free to drop it in the chat, or if you have any questions now, I'll be taking questions. So thank you so much for your time. If there are any questions, you can raise your hand or pop questions in the chat. All right, wonderful. We'll have another opportunity to interact with our speakers. Oh, perfect. There's a question from Mohammed. I will allow you to unmute. Let's see, you should be able to unmute. Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
First, thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate the two recent presentation. And my name is Azhar, or Mohammed Suleiman Azhar. I'm from Comoros Islands, which is a country based in the Indian Ocean in East Africa, next to Madagascar. And I'm a founder of an NGO called Salam, which is an NGO that will promote peace and security in the Indian Ocean and East Africa. We have 10 countries that will promote peace and security in the whole region. And regarding your presentation about the overfishing, as you know, we from the islands, most of the time we think that peace is only regarding in human society, while as you mentioned that natural and animal, they are part of peace that we need to preserve. Because when we are coming from islands which is rich in fish and natural resources, and we don't control them, we are taking every single fish we find to eat, while there are some who are supposed to be grown, some who are supposed to be produced, and some who are supposed to be eaten. And I think this is not peace. This is out of security. So I just want to appreciate the your part of mention this issue of controlling nature and animals as part of peace. And I think I learned much from you, because from my NGO, we never think about that. We just consider about promoting peace in society, in municipalities. So now I take note for that, and I think we need to think about and how we can set up a program about promoting peace in the natural aspects, especially on biodiversity and marine animals and any kind of natural resources in the ocean who we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and I appreciate its application to your own life. Does anyone else have either a question or a comment? We have time for one more.
Tara, I had a question.
Yes.
When did you first see this medical model in the culture of peace that's not normally discussed? Did you have a specific aha moment?
I did. I think when I was first framing this presentation, I was largely focused on the environmental science and its connection to or interconnectedness and a culture of peace. When I dug further into our work at NiceCheck, Dr. Carlin and I work at New York State Children's Environmental Health Centers. I realized that the basis of our work is peace. We try to promote peace through health and through science. And that was my eureka moment, that it's all connected, right? We preach that it's all connected, and then you have the moment where it's like, oh, it is connected. So I'm very appreciative for that and for the opportunity to connect my United Nations background with my science background. I think it's an incredible realization to have, and I hope you all have the same realization for your work. And with that, I will be introducing Dr. Carlin. Dr. Scott Carlin is a geographer and UN representative for the Diami Foundation, as well as a consultant with NiceCheck. Dr. Carlin is a founding member of the Unitive Thematic Cluster and has long championed the integration of science, diplomacy, and culture in advancing the UN SDGs. He brings a wealth of experience in sustainable development and global citizenship education. Thank you, Dr. Carlin.
So let me figure out how to get this in full screen mode here, or not. Any tips on this, Tara?
Yes, click slideshow and then start from the
Oh, I
beginning.
have control over that here. Okay.
Perfect, and play from start.
Okay. Minor glitch. So I'm going to build off of what Tara just shared. We didn't coordinate before our presentation, but I'll figure out how to weave it together since it's all interconnected, as Tara said. And I want to suggest, though I don't perfect this, it's just a desire. I want to suggest that we think of peace from a coevolutionary science perspective. So I'll start by just asking, what do you believe will galvanize peace in our lives? And you can feel free to put that in the chat. And I just lost the screen share. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, just 1 second. Okay. So peace requires clear intentions and effort. That's a theme that I'll develop here. Let me start by sharing a couple of recent documents from the UN, and I'd encourage you to review those documents. I think they're quite important for the work of peace and the culture of peace. But I'd ask, how does the UN articulate science and the science of peace specifically in its work today? And as with the prior slide, I encourage you to jot down some thoughts in the chat window. So I'd like to take this a step further from intention to we must embody our commitment to peace. How can we actually literally be peace? Be aware of your own breath at the moment. A couple of you or more know that breath meditation is an important art in its own right. And scientifically, we know that focusing on the breath, embodying our breath, is a way to calm our nervous system. Think about how you communicate with others. How do you sometimes communicate with your whole being? And specifically, how do you do that to communicate peace with others? So we need to not just talk the language of peace, but also embody the languaging of peace. Have you had the experience of walking in peace? And how does that affect your sense of self, your day, your desires? So peace needs to be a way of living. Peace is like a garden. It is a lifestyle, a practice. If we don't tend to the garden will wither. Peace must be renewed every day, every month, every season. Can we conceive of peace as a gift and the transaction of gift giving? Can we accept the gift for ourselves? Can we give that gift to each other? And can we be more celebratory around peace? Or to language this a little differently, can we embrace peace as a precious gift? And how does the introduction of that word precious shift the context of peace for you? So what I've suggested in the last several slides is that as we get serious about the science of peace, and Tara gave us an outstanding overview of the methodology of science, peace is certainly a soft science, and how we communicate, all kinds of attributes of communication, are incredibly important for our interpersonal relationships, for the power of peace in our narratives. And there are a lot of different things on the screen. I can't talk about each one of them, but focus on one or two that are enthusiastic for you personally. But the power of narrative, I want you to dwell on how important that is, both for violence and for peace. So here's my scientific reasoning around peace. I don't think it's a bad equation. I've never seen it phrased that way. It's backed by the Director General of UNESCO from 1999. The quote here, I think, is valuable, but we can distill it as peace is reason times love. Can we take our capacity for love and our capacity for reason and use them in more harmonious ways than I see in my daily life to invent new possibilities and empower our own lives, the lives of our families, communities, and indeed the world to become peaceful? Now, this comes from a real scientific article. Peace grows from our shared sense of identity. So that's a quite important part of cultivating norms of peace in society. It comes from investments in peaceful values, norms, rituals, and our capacities to think and act from a deep awareness of social and ecological interdependencies. And again, Tara did a wonderful job in explaining that. So this is the scholarship that last slide draws from. This is a 2021 article. It's the lead author is a gentleman named Douglas Fry. He has a lifetime of experience of analyzing what he calls and others call peace systems. In other words, how do countries, how do clusters of nations work cooperatively to build harmonious relations, oftentimes replacing formerly warring and violent relationships, and then sustaining that peace for long periods of time. These authors believe that we really need to study cultures that embody peace, understand the rituals that enable them to sustain peace, and emulate certain structural patterns that these scientists have observed. And I summarized on the last slide, right? It's as simple as daily rituals, celebrations, norms. So just reprising the prior slide, peace is still reason times love, but we can derive from this another axiom that cultures of peace and love must be stronger than cultures of violence. Where cultures are trending or engulfed in violence, there's been a breakdown, clearly a breakdown in cultures of love and peace. It's not clear to me why this isn't communicated more directly through the world's education systems. I'm not aware that it is. I think there are some spiritual practices, religious practices that make this a focal point. I was on a beautiful call last night, about 800 people internationally, on the power of love. And the lead speaker was talking about our shared dreams must be more powerful than our fears and nightmares. So I'd invite you all on a journey with me to how to create those dreams that are more powerful than the nightmares in our daily lives. So here's my status report, a very cursory, cut and dry, what are we doing regarding the science of peace? The science of peace today is woefully underfunded. It struggles with low status, and it lacks the necessary infrastructure to support a culture of peace. So we've got to find a way to deepen what I'll call this marriage between the science of peace and the culture of peace. And the UN is an absolutely essential part of moving that agenda forward. The UN has for 25 years been a strong supporter of the culture of peace. Countries have had very varied experiences with their own embrace of the culture of peace. But I think science, as Tara so eloquently stated, is in fact a critical component of the culture of peace. This is no longer an academic or theoretical question. We now face a very real choice of choosing peace or choosing global collapse. This comes from a 2022 document, Earth for All, based on the best available scientific evidence around planetary processes, planetary boundaries, and we're at this focal point. We can see things are trending downwards at a global scale right now, but in a resilience model, they could bounce back, and in fact, we can enjoy abundant prosperity in our world by embracing, inventing, creating a good Anthropocene. If we don't have that resilient bounce in a very short period of time, there will be deep disturbances and destruction that follows from there. The science is becoming clearer and clearer about that. So how does the culture of peace move that forward? Fundamentally, if I had to boil down peace to one word, it would be reciprocity. It's how do we create positive systems of reciprocity in our interactions, and what will allow us to do that? I think Buddhism very eloquently has, for thousands of years, promoted what they called the middle way, and that offers a lot of insights for world cultures about where things might go differently to improve things. And some of us work with a dynamic woman, Rianne Eisler, and she advocates a specific system called partnerism. But I see all three of these are kind of aligned in terms of their culture of peace commitments. The unit of cluster at the UN that is hosting this event works from what's called the unitive narrative. And that narrative is, I think, a paradigm shift for us in terms of how we understand each other and how we relate to the natural world around us. So how do we begin to shift consciousness and embrace a world that is deeply interconnected in powerful ways that can help ignite peace in our hearts and peace in the world? This is the organization, the Revolutionary Love Project, that hosted that event last night. Grief was one of the elements that they talked about. They put forward a model that we must share grief with the stranger as a practice of planetary love and planetary peace. And I'd invite you to learn more about the work that they're doing based on their reading of science and the teachings of science, in addition to traditional indigenous wisdoms and other wisdom traditions. Here's a 2021 article talking about how to think about the science of peace from a more academic and abstract kind of way. This presentation right now isn't the right time to go into all the details here, but they do a nice job of articulating whether or not cultures are moving towards a peaceful direction or a more domineering and violent direction. And the sets of factors called factor 1 and factor 2 give you a good sense of things to look for in societies that are driving changes in a positive, healthy, holistic way or factionalizing society. But fundamentally, as the screen on the right suggests, and as many of you already know, the fundamental practices of peace have to be grounded in meeting basic human needs and safeguarding planetary natural systems. So this is an excellent place to deepen your knowledge of the science of peace, in addition to the prior article I mentioned. This group is the Sustaining Peace Project. Some of this work is based at Columbia University. It's a multi-university project, is my understanding, of scholars at different campuses. The visuals are quite compelling, dramatic to look at, but really, what are they talking about here? They're talking about reciprocity. They have the resources to, oh, I put it in the title, thank goodness. They have the resources to kind of analyze reciprocity in all kinds of complex ways, but if you want, again, to deepen your understanding of the science of peace, this is another place to do that. Some of the scientists that were referenced in the prior two slides work here at this Sustaining Peace Project. I want to conclude by just acknowledging a couple of resources that exist that are important for building this project of the science of peace. There's the University of Peace, and it is something that the UN has helped launch in Costa Rica. There's UNESCO's work in a variety of different practices, but in the last couple of years, they have deepened their commitment to peace education. So this is from a recent report that they put out. And some of you know about the Global Peace Index put out by the Institute for Economics and Peace. This is another important touchstone for understanding trends in peace in the world, trends in violence in the world. You can see some of their other reports on the screen here as well. So there are ways to, measure peace, and to do so using the tools of science, the reasoning of science, the deductive thinking, the logic that Tara talked about earlier. So let me conclude by, what are the goals that we could set collectively for 2030 and share with other institutions and co-evolve together for peace? And let me leave you with this thought. Why not create, through the UN system, a UN Peace Science Council dedicated to the global pursuit of peace and based on science and based on evidence-based solutions? As Tara so clearly shared with us, the culture of peace is itself scientifically grounded, but it's not appreciated in that sense. And I think it's important at this moment in world history for us to advance peace on that scientific basis. I have asked you a couple of times to share comments in the chat box. I also have set up a little Google form where you can share your thoughts on peace and how to build peace, and I'll put that link into the chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Carlin. Up next is Nelji Esteves, a high school student from the Newark School of Global Studies in New Jersey. Nelji is already making their mark through Model UN, language learning, and global issues advocacy. Their insights bring the voice of youth and a spirit of unity to the heart of today's conversation. And Nelji, you may unmute when you're ready.
Hello. My name is Snowji. As you said, I'm from North School of Global Studies, and I'm the youth speaker for this presentation or overall talk about the culture of peace. And I just want to say that I really do appreciate the fact that I'm being taught by the elders of the world, people who I know and can trust with their experience in life. And I really want to thank Pathways to Peace for giving me the opportunity to actually be able to, learn, seek new guidance and like ideas for my future. And before anything else, I just want to say that after a lot of research on the culture of peace, the way and why it was created, I am very indicted to its overall like ambition that it seeks to like promote. For example, the fact that we should work together, even though like in the current world it might not happen because some people are greedy, some people don't abide by the things that promote peace and happiness and all that. It's all bad. But after like researching it, learning and hearing from others, I have to say that I really do appreciate and support the fact that an idea of peace is being supported, not only an idea that is an example of like life and how it should abide if we want to survive until the end of everything, because we don't know when we're gonna die, we don't know when we're born, this and that. There's a lot of things we don't know, and I really do appreciate the fact that I'm learning about the culture of peace, the way that life happens and how it should happen, and why we should do the correct things to make the world better. Um, so as past speakers said, Tara and the professor, uh, I learned from my personal like research and also the presentations that happened within within this like meeting, that the the culture of peace was created in 1999 as to basically deplete conflicts that were happening. As we know, the 1990s were one of the most like revolutionizing times of the history of the world. For example, the Soviet Union collapsed, governments were overall switching and making new regulations and all of that. And after like thorough research, consideration, all that, as I said, I have come up with some like things that I think that the culture of peace could help or work to do. For example, like I feel like, for example, the current like pandemic that happened, the COVID-19, proves that culture of peace works and it can work. As we solved a pandemic that killed millions of people with the help of scientists, science, and the fact that we wanted to solve something that depleted life. So as COVID-19 happened and the vaccine was found, that really proved that science solves global problems peacefully, and that overall, science could also help us understand and solve problems like climate change, diseases, hunger, and without science, we wouldn't have the tools to fix these problems. So I feel like the culture of peace promotes a solvency for all these problems. And as a youth speaker, and as I'm living at the current world and how it's going, I have to say that the fact that science and all of these things are being educated to me is very, very like insightful for my learning. And not only that, but I really do support the fact that I'm learning about the past. For example, on psychological and also ethical ideas from like scientists, as the professor said in his presentation before. But so some like psychological thinkers I really like I aspire to through the culture of peace are, for example, Albert Einstein. He promoted a lot of theories which helped us and which still help us promote peace in the future of humanity through the fact that we are simple. We can die, we can live, we are made, and when we're gone, we don't know what we see. We don't even know what happens after we die. So I feel like the fact that the culture of peace is being promoted and like tasked as something that we should learn and advocate for is really important. And I really do like the fact that this topic is being overall discussed as overall like life and the way that science works and the things that we say can also relate to the fact that science and overall life can be bad, and overall the intelligence that we are taught can be used for bad. And I think that the culture of peace also considers the fact that not everything that can be used will be used for bad or good, but that it would also like threaten the future in one way or another if we use it for good or bad. That's all, and thank you.
Thank you, Nalji. That was so insightful, and it's such a pleasure to have you speaking with us today. Reading and leading our interactive dialogue is Reverend Dr. Joni Carley, a United Nations ECOSOC representative and convener of the Unitive Cluster. She is an author and a recognized voice in values-based leadership and consciousness-centered change. Dr. Joni invites us to explore how inner awareness changes our perspective. And thank you, Dr. Joni.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here and wonderful to have you here. So science is pointing toward a paradigm change, and it has everything to do with our work at the United Nations. That paradigm change, Scott talked about this, is a shift away from the current predominating worldview of separation, adversarial politics, domination-oriented strategies, and away from a focus on materiality. And that paradigm shift is a shift toward recognizing that we are one whole interwoven planetary web of life. The separation and material-based narrative that underpins this paradigm that we're in now, that we're transitioning from, is totally incoherent with current science, and is incoherent with all of our most wisdom traditions and religious and spiritual teachings. And despite that, there is absolutely no evidence to back up this narrative of separation that we've been operating on, it still forms the basis of our domination-oriented social systems. And that false but predominant narrative underlies inaccurate and dangerous unconscious presumptions about militarism, competition in general, about who we are and what we do and why. And I want to take a moment here and just distinguish narrative from story. Narrative is that deep cultural underpinning. It's the water we swim in. It's usually left untold, but it's understood. It's kind of passed down. It's an invisible operating system. It's a basis from which we're all unconsciously operating. That's kind of any kind of narrative, a cultural narrative. And the separation narrative that we've been operating on underpins stories about survival of the fittest. It's dog eat dog. Only the bottom line of the numbers is important. Money and might makes right. You know, all of those kinds of stories are based on a deeper unspoken separation narrative. But we now know through science and through our own, and through philosophy, psychology, through, really our own reasoning in our own hearts, is that the separation-based narrative is not true. And it's proven to be a very faulty basis to build social systems on. It's clear now that current environmental, social, and economic conditions cannot be solved from within cultures that are grounded in this false narrative of separation, of competition, of militarism, and of division. So there's a unitive narrative that's now emerging, and it lays the groundwork for shifting to a paradigm that's based on more solid scientific and more solid spiritual ground, and frankly has a better potential of being fit for the purpose of keeping us all alive and well and happy. So I want to give you a very brief overview of that unitive narrative. It's based on cosmologist Jude Currivan's work and corroborated by many. And the story goes that about 13.8 billion years ago, we didn't have a big bang the way we usually hear, but she submits that we had an incredibly fine-tuned first moment of an ongoing big breath. And that breath of universal consciousness continues to manifest as ever more complex mathematical signatures. And what scientists are discovering is that processes of this kind of wholeness is occurring at all scales of existence, and it's being demonstrated through many fields of study. We saw a few today, and Tara demonstrated kind of the universality that can be applied in terms of scientific study. And what the studies are revealing is that our wholeness is not only within our own skin, but we're also whole with the entirety of all that is. From pre-particle to atoms to people to planet to groups of galaxies and beyond. And that means that unity is not some far-off utopian aspiration. Unity is our existential reality. And corroboration of this understanding is coming in across scientific fields from cosmology to quantum physics to chemistry to evolutionary biology, behavioral and neurosciences, and especially in complexity science. The evidence is very clear. We are all interdependently co-arising with everyone and everything else, and not just on the planet and with the planet, but on and with in and with the entire universe. Evolutionary biologists have redefined what survival of the fittest even means. We know unequivocally that throughout species and throughout time, the most fit are the most cooperative. Competition is only important to fitness at very primitive levels of a system. Once you get to larger multicellular organisms, survival depends on collaboration, and fitness can only be defined if it's a collaborative entity. So no complex organism can be thought of as fit if it doesn't accommodate the reality of our fundamental existential unity. And that includes the complex organisms of governments and the UN. We understand now that we are each indivisible from it all. And that understanding is not just scientific, it's coherent with most religious indigenous traditions. And that understanding requires that we completely reframe our ideas about how we can live in a peaceful world. It requires that we reinvent our very basic notions of what constitutes good governance. And flipping onto this unitive narrative away from a separation narrative demands that we actually redefine what social development even means. Since that big breath almost 14 billion years ago, a very sentient universe has emerged, and it's a web of life that goes from simplicity to complexity and back again, from yin to yang and back again, from wave to ocean and back again. It's a process. It's a process. And we are evolutionary microcosmic co-creators in that emergent universe. And Scott, I would take some issue with that slide you had up about shared dreams must be more powerful than our fears and nightmares. I say they are. And that we need to stand in the courage of recognizing that we do share these dreams. Sometimes we think we're the only one because the rest of the cultural stream seems to be going in another direction. And that's our work, is to shift into, make that paradigmatic shift into the stream of our dreams. Into knowing that we are all part of this unfolding universe and the breakthrough of and that we all matter. We each matter and we all matter. And the breakthrough of this unitive narrative that is that it brings a new underpinning and that's more fit for the purpose of holding up a framework for a new paradigm that's anchored in a culture of peace, because it's anchored in the reality of our unity. Co-creating the culture of peace with one another requires that we recognize that we are existentially unified in all of our glorious diversity. That's just what's so. And so on that, I'm going to say, let's take a breath, and then we'll launch into some conversation with each other. And so just thinking about, you heard a lot of concepts today. Lots was put on the table. So just put in the chat, what are some of the concepts that jumped out at you? What struck you as something to think further about or to ask more about? Don't all chat at once. What grabbed you today? You heard a lot. You heard a lot. So give us a couple of ideas that came up for you. Looks like we're shy in the chat. And so we're going to take this into breakout rooms. And we're going to just leave that question on the table of Nellie writes how peace can be achieved socially through teamwork. Yeah, that's something that came up today for sure. And that we know that the science supports that that's worth the time and effort to do. And so unity is our existential reality. Yeah. That's the paradigm changer. That's the game changer, Nancy. That really is. We thought it was something that was way out there, someplace else, something else that we can never get to, but it's our reality. We have to wake up to it. That's what the Buddhists said enlightenment was, just waking up to it. It wasn't something extra. And that's really what we're talking about today. That's the resituating. That's what makes it a paradigm change. Why don't we head into breakout rooms? Being peaceful with ourselves and through self-care. Peace is an inside job. Yeah. It's a both and, inside and outside. So Tara Artez, are you moving us into the rooms?
Yes, Tez is working on that.
Okay. And we'll give you about 15 minutes or so.
And come back ready to share. I am closing all rooms because we only have 8 of us here. And so we'll just stay in the main room. Nine. I kept moving people around rooms to fill the rooms. And I think we just need to close the rooms and have a full group conversation around those questions. We can keep on gallery view for the reports or the dialogue. For a few minutes.
So who's got something to share? Simi, your mic is muted. Do we need help getting Simi unmuted?
Okay, there we go. I think our breakout session got down to like maybe the ingredients of peace, and it came down to like empathy. You know, we got to have empathy for ourselves and for the people around us. I think we discussed how accepting reality is to certain negative things that we turn a blind eye to, like whether it be homelessness or just abusive period of the environment where we always think of like that next generation can take care of it. You know, we got this thinking of like somebody else can take care of it, or how you know, efficient AI is. You know, we so dependent on AI that we don't realize that AI can't work without us. It's our reactions and our responses that power AI. So we don't have nothing to worry about because it's not generating answers and stuff on its own. It's just our use of it that's collecting data. So we just gotta figure out how to get that back down to the level of how it's actual practical, make everything practical to the point that if we talk in peace, it's holding media accountable. You know what I'm saying? We're not saying change your bad dreams that you want to turn into a script, but we saying put a preclaimer in front of it, saying that this is not the actual reality, and you know, stuff like that. And it's just the small things, because it's like in our society we broadcasted so much with so much violence or poverty as entertainment that, you know, society accepts it. And then when you get people like us on calls like this, we really don't have nothing to say because the positive stuff is not backed up. You know, we were saying that it's funny how if you're a criminal, you get community service to be a volunteer. But what about being a volunteer as a student? Make that part of your academic part. Because how can you learn all this education if none of this education is practical? You got to go out into the community and make it actual before you even get a career, you know, but that's putting the weight on education. So then it comes back down to us, which is empathy, you know, and how do we spread that empathy to the point that, you know, not only loving yourself, but just love your surroundings. You know, your surroundings is a reflection of you. And if you can walk past a person that's laid out on the ground and not say nothing, then that's a reflection of you, not of them, because, you know, and that's not taught. You know, but that's basically what we came down to is, you know, we got to learn how to spread empathy and make it make sense. You know, it don't have to be difficult, but just make it make sense and not point the finger, because we can point the finger at a lot of things, a lot of things, but those things are what's trying to control us. And we got to be able to control the things that want to control us. So,
Thank you.
All right.
Other breakout rooms?
Arafat, he
Yeah,
had
that's what I was
some thoughts that he shared in our breakout room. You want to share?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thank you for this invitation. I'm Arafat from Tunisia, Arafat bin Mabrouk from Tunisia, from Free Site, Vision Libre, association non-governmental. I think when we talk about peace, we need to know which the meaning, the right meaning of the peace. It is the culture of the peace, the meaning of the peace, many things we must know. want to practice to do many things to peace, we must know what do we need. What is the peace? Is something writing in the papers, or something we practice to be together, to be in a world without wars, without mistakes, without many bad things. What we need? What's the definition of the peace? The peace, I know I have peace in my heart, in my mind. But when I see the world with many wars, I ask, what is the definition, the good definition or the right definition about peace? And thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a good question to hold in our hearts forever. It's an ever-evolving question. We should never assume we have the answer.
We had a great breakout room session. I don't know if Dr. Kaylani would like to share from Brahma Kumaris.
Hello, I'm from Sri Lanka. I'm a medical doctor, and also I'm part of Brahma Kumaris. So I also involved in that Asian Green initiatives. So we usually concentrate how our value system, our conscious change towards positivity and also peace that will can be incorporated in the conservation of our nature and also in green initiatives like agriculture or gardening like that in small scales. So there are also scientific evidence from other countries which tells that our conscious change and our positive attitudes can impact on our nature. For example, a Japanese
Dr.
scientist.
Kaylani, I'm sorry to do this. I feel terrible, but we're getting so close on time that we don't have time to go into that. But we would
Yes, you can
more about
research. You can Google it. Dr. Imoto.
Can you please put it in the
Japanese.
chat? Put it in the chat.
I will share it in the.
Okay, thank
yeah.
you. And Mohammed, quickly, let's hear from you, please.
Are you with me?
We are.
I just wanted to answer my brother from Tunisia. Assalamu alaikum, ya Sheikh, about the definition of peace.
Wa alaikum assalam.
From my understanding, the definition of peace is not stable. There is not a unique definition. Peace means according to the situation, according to where we are. Peace in Africa is not the same peace in the United States. It's not the same peace in Gaza. So where you are and what you are faced as obstacle is what you can define peace. So I think for education in Africa, we need more education about peace, as some of the panelists here try to explain us about cultural peace, individual, etc., etc. So for me, I think our panelists here need to support our local organization in Africa in order to have the sufficient knowledge about peace and for us to spread that knowledge to our community.
Thank you so
very
much. We are really out of time. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Tazkiah, we'll take it over to you to close us up.
I would invite Tara, who has been our superwoman organizer and presenter and MC, to have any closing remarks, and then I will close.
Thank you all for joining us today. We have speakers and we have participants from all over the world. It is such a pleasure to be in your presence, and I look forward to following up with all of you about how to bridge science with a culture of peace.
Yes, thank you, Tara. And we just are so honored that you all are here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for using your voice. Thank you for being a pathway to peace. And we look forward to working with you together in the future. And we wish you peace. Thank you. Tara, you could put that music back on if you'd like to while people are leaving.
Wonderful.
You're all wonderful. Much love to you all.
Great to have you here. Thank you.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. That is our beloved Gary Melvin with the science of love. Thank you.